What's going on? What's going on? Let me get my microphone close to me. What is going on? Happy, where are we at today? Thursday. Happy Thursday to you guys. If you're on here, like, share, subscribe. Y'all know the drill. We have a lot to cover off today. I'm sure by now y'all have been hearing about this trending conversation between Iyanla Vanzant and Eboni K Williams that has been the talk over the last couple of days. And honestly, I think it brings up quite a few things that I want to highlight just in regards to just dating and mating in general today, and especially what we see and can expect in the Black community. So a lot to unpack here. But again, before I do, like, share, subscribe. You know the drill. If you like what's going on here, you can show love on CASHAPP, VENMO, Chez, Chardé. As always, be sure to support your favorite content creators. And also, y'all get the message out if you like what's going on here. The best way to beat a shadow ban, the best way to make sure that the kind of content that you like is going out is by you doing your part to share, by you doing your part to listen, get the message out there, all that jazz. So thank you so much for those of you guys who are here, who are just such loyal supporters. I appreciate all of you. I also appreciate you for hanging out with me because I know y'all could be anywhere, but you're hanging out here. So thank you so much. It really does mean a lot. So I already know that blue collar men are being gaslit. And the reason I know that is because I'm being gaslit. And like, I'm not even blue collar man, right? I posted something earlier this week. And it was initially in response to the video that I'm sure you guys have seen by now between Iyanla Vanzant and Eboni K Williams. And basically, you know, Eboni K Williams, she's having an interview with her, and basically she's like, shout out to you, CD, with the 5, starting things off correctly. Basically in the interview, she's like, basically men basically need to get together, right? They need to get it together. And how do we as women attract men who basically have their ish together? That's in the long story short, what was the conversation? Iyanla Vanzant goes in and basically is like, would you date a bus driver? She's obviously like, I don't know about all that unless he owns the bus. And so here we are today. Y'all let me know first in the comment section. Let me know if you guys have seen that video. If you haven't seen that video, I can play it for y'all real quick. If you have, then I can move on to some of the other receipts because I have a couple of things that I want to cover off today. So let me know in the comment section if you guys have already seen the video, or if not, I can play it real quick so you guys can get verbatim just the whole backdrop of this conversation, which is pretty important to understand. I see Ebony's white supremacy. Yeah, that was kind of, and look, I'm not one that downplays white supremacy. I know that it exists, but it's like, we can't, that's why sometimes folks don't take it seriously. Cause it's like, to me, it's pulled into conversations that have nothing to do with the topic at hand. Okay. So y'all you said, please don't subject to her voice again. I see, roll that beautiful image. It said roll. So I'm trying to see. It looks like we're kind of mixed here. It said, "Yep, seen it." Okay, well, look, guys, I have a few other things that I want to review that I think will kind of sum this up briefly. So, anyways, make a long story short, there was that video that she did with Iyanla Vanzant. Iyanla Vanzant asked her, "Would you date a bus driver?" She's like, "Nah, unless he owns the bus, I ain't doing it." And then here we are today. In response to that video, I posted something on Twitter. It was just some thoughts, right, around this whole topic. And I posted this. I also shared it on my community tab, but so y'all can see it here. It was this tweet, right? And I basically said, listen, why are so many women comfortable looking down on truck drivers, plumbers, electricians, janitors, aka blue collar workers, as if they're not on our level? If we as women went one day without the resources these men provided, we feel like the world was falling apart. And so a lot of times what I hear when it comes to, okay, would you date a blue collar man, right? And they're talking to different women. Sometimes it'll be educated women. It'll be women who are absolutely maybe white collar jobs. Maybe they're working at corporate office, whatever it may be. And then they look down on blue collar men. And my thing is like, okay, why are we so quick to look down on men that we actually depend upon? Like literally, like we depend upon plumbers, we depend upon electricians, we depend upon people who work at water treatment center. Like these aren't like nice to haves where it's like kind of, you know, the creature comforts. These are literally like, if you don't have clean running water, if your sewage is broken down, if you don't have somebody that knows how to fix your roof, like these are essentials. So it's so interesting to me how these kinds of jobs are considered to be like not good enough. Even bus drivers or truck drivers, right? Like I said, have truck drivers go on a strike. Have them just go on a strike for a week, for 2, right? And then see how much that impacts your life. You go to the grocery store, now you can't get toilet paper. You go to Walmart, they don't have hair supplies. You go to the store, you can't get. It's like all the basic things that we depend upon rely upon these blue collar, so you know, quote unquote blue collar workers that we're so quick to say that are not good enough. And I'm like, why do we do that? Shout out to you, Next Level with the 10. It says blue collar men here earning 95K. In my second year of a career change, no college, no student loan debt. I don't care what these birds have to say. I'll chase my goals. They can chase me. First of all, shout out to you. Shout out to you. Real talk. I know men who actually weighed the options. And that's a whole other thing they talk about. Sometimes when people talk about blue collar workers, they act as if these are like bumbling idiots, men who didn't have, you know, don't have 2 brain cells to rub together. They couldn't get into college. They couldn't get into school. They had poor grades. And the best they could do is just drive a truck. Like this is the way these things are framed. And what we're not hearing about is the amount of school loans that a lot of these men have been able to avoid, the fact that being a trade skillman can actually pay very, very, very good money, and how you actually have a lot of blue collar men, right, who actually are living quite well, owning properties, taking care of families. One of my best friends is married to a blue collar worker, and she had different medical things going on where she had to have all these surgeries and different things that was not intended. She was able to stay home with her 2 kids, deal with her medical concerns. She's still handling with the medical concerns, all under her husband's salary, who, by the way, is a blue collar worker. So it's like, I'm like, do y'all understand how delusional this stuff is? But nevertheless, there's these ideas that these dudes are just like bumbling idiots. They're not really making that good of money. They're kind of average. And it's like, do you not understand how delusional this is? So anyways, like I said, I posted this comment, and, you know, I got a few ladies in there. Well, I got a lot of gentlemen who were like, yeah. I got some ladies in there who were like, actually, I like blue collar workers. Here's someone that says lots of women do it. I wouldn't, all of the things being equal, but I do know most women would, right? So this is a guy being like, yeah, you ain't lying. There are ladies out there who absolutely will gaslight us and say that it's not on our level. Here's another one, sad but true, that if men aren't millionaires, they're failures. Mindset needs to stop. Says there definitely was a thread of women who here saying that they never date a blue collar man, even if he made more than they, because blue collar jobs aren't prestigious enough a few years ago. I want you guys to notice that, actually, because that is a real thing that people don't talk about. Sometimes, you know, there's the argument just like, oh, he needs to make a lot of money. People be forgetting that blue collar workers can actually make well into 6 figures, but it's not just about the money. It's also about the prestige. And that tweet, I think, did a great job of actually highlighting that. Okay, there's another one. Now here's where one woman says, I'm not going to turn down a blue collar guy, but I sure as hell not going to turn down the garbage man. Oh, garbage man or bus driver, either he got a job is a job, as long as it gives that man purpose. My dad taught me that. So there's some women who were like, I'm cool with the blue collar dude, right? But then I started to run into some gaslighting. See if I can find it, because there were so many tweets, there were so many where'd this go? Oh wait, that's the wrong one. Sorry, y'all. Bear with me. Bear with me, y'all. I was looking at the wrong thing. Let's see. Sorry, guys. Forgive me. Okay. So again, I had a lot of men who were like, yep, social media has a warped expectation of many women. The perception of what money looks like varies by location, which is absolutely true. Here's some. I love a blue collar working man. It says because they're watching social media. So like Again, there was a lot of men who were actually agreeing with this. Now, here's one which is like, I don't know, because they make good money. I don't know about janitors, but the others making six figures. Then here's one who's just like, I don't know why people say this. Who are these women that they are talking about? Tradesmen are working men, and women want men who work. So here's a woman out here who's just like, what are you talking about? Like, women don't gaslit blue collar men. Like, as long as dude is working, we'll take him. So there's this one lady who's like, yep, you're lying. Like, what are you even talking about? Let me see. Here's one right here. Nah, this isn't true for most women. We love a tradesman, a Mr. Fix-It, a man that's good with his hands. They are so knowledgeable and make our lives easier. They are kings amongst men. God bless them. So here are some ladies bigging up blue collar men. I don't know if you guys can relate to this, but I started having women being like, what are you even talking about? Like, what are you even talking about? This isn't a thing. Like, most women actually really like blue collar men. They think that they are useful. They think that they are handyman. Here's another one. I love a man that can fix things. Blue collar men are amazing. I call this crap the Victor Newman syndrome. A man isn't worth unless he's in a three-piece suit running $1 billion corporation that is alive from the pit of hell. Right. So you have a few ladies there who are, again, very much in agreement. I'm trying to find, man, that just there's too many comments. But basically, what I did get, I got a lot of the lovely ladies starting to push back and be like, look, I don't know what you're talking about, but I actually really like blue collar men. Like, and women don't do that. Like, only on social media do you see maybe women pushing back, but in real life, women absolutely love blue collar men. You're tripping. Like, why are you saying this? I'm trying to pull up some of the different receipts, but my thing is not letting me access the quote tweets, but that's fine because I have a few other evidence I want to show you. But basically, so I posted that thing out there. I got a response. Obviously, I got a lot of men who were just like, yeah, sad but true. I got a few women who were like, I actually like blue collar men. And then there was some pushback that I got from women who were just like, actually, what are you talking about? Women don't look down on blue collar men. What are you talking about? You're making this stuff up. As long as a man has a job and it's a stable job, we're not tripping. Right. So now let's go on to the next one, because in response to some of that feedback that I got, I decided to essentially make this second tweet where I was like, why am I being gaslit, y'all? Right. I was like, why am I being gaslit? Y'all really telling me ladies never turn down blue collar workers for not being on their level? At the same time, we dealing with the 80-20 rule, wise manosphere, hypergamy. Most women ain't bragging to their girls about dating a garbage man. Like, be real. Right. And so again, I started getting gaslit. There were so many different, if you look at some of the quote tweets and the retweets and the feedback, I had women who were just like, you're making this up. What are you talking about? Stop going overboard. Women don't really do this. And I'm like, are we really going to pretend like the manosphere hasn't happened? Are we really going to pretend like women actually don't gaslight men regularly, blue collar men specifically, and say that they're not really on their level? Like, y'all haven't heard of hypergamy. Y'all haven't heard of the 80-20 rule. Y'all haven't heard of the passport bros of the manosphere, which is largely made up of men who have like trades. Like, what are we even talking about? So I posted this and I'm like, I'm being gaslit. Right. And I have some men who are just like, yeah, no, lots of women do it. I wouldn't, all other things being equal. Yeah, I already read that one. Let's see. Let me see if I can find, because I definitely got some pushback here. Where am I not? Okay, guys, I'm sorry. I had like all these replies and then like now they're not even coming up. What is going on with this tweeta? So here's one, for example. It says, you're just overgeneralizing on a topic that requires nuance, dependent upon the demographic location of the women. In New York and New Jersey, for example, these men are high earning, get lots of dates, are more likely to be married, and a narrative around the importance of there is pushed. Another one here says, I live in New York, and most of the blue collar men I know own homes in Long Island and Queens, and the majority of them have wives and girlfriends, a few at the same time. And so they hear a black woman who are just like, look, in response to my tweet where I'm like, why do blue collar men be gaslit? They're like, what are you talking about? Blue collar men are not gaslit. A lot of them have wives. A lot of them have girlfriends. They get respect. I date them. Other women would date them. Basically, what are you talking about? And then if you see there are actual comments in there where women are just like, oh, I love me a blue collar man. He works hard as long as he pays the bills, whatever. I'm curious, those of you guys who are actually in the chat and you are or you have worked, if all of the love and all of the support and all of the heart emojis that were shared on my Twitter feed is actually reflective of your experience. I'd be curious to know that, because I'm looking at here and I'm like, so y'all really about to tell me that the manosphere doesn't exist? Like, so all of a sudden women are really, really, really into blue collar men like this? Really? Like, this is news to me. So I'm curious if you men who are, trade skill men or blue collar worker, or those men who are, if they have wives, if they have girlfriends, if they have very successful careers, if they have women who are just hitting them up all the time, they have plenty of options, or if these men are being gaslit. I'd be curious about that, because from my experience, I know women who have clearly been like, these men aren't on our level. Case in point, the conversation that Iyanla Vanzant had with Eboni K Williams. And she's like, I'm only dating a bus driver if he owns the company. So y'all let me know in the comments. Okay, so here I say not at all. Yeah, y'all. But anyway, so that's the conversation that I had on Twitter. And that kind of got me thinking about this whole thing, because I walked away from that being like, I made this comment that, to me, I thought this is common knowledge. It's like, literally, you have the whole narrative of men, basically, there's not enough marriageable black men, or where are all the good black men? Where are all the good men, period? That's been a narrative for decades, right? And so I'm assuming when I go out there and I'm just like, hey, why do we gaslit these kinds of men? I'm like, to me, this is not something that I need to argue. Like, we already know this is true. But then when I put it out there, I got a lot of men who were obviously like, yes, this is my experience. But then I had a lot of ladies who were just like, no, we love blue collar men. They're amazing. And I'm like, this don't seem right, because this is not reflective of the experience of the men that I've actually talked to or listened to. Now, I want to turn your attention to, there's two things that I want to review, right? There is the response that Eboni K Williams did regarding this whole conversation of whether or not a woman should date a bus driver, and specifically her response around a woman dating a bus driver. I want to pull that up because, again, I think this feeds into the conversation of what I was saying, that like, y'all being gaslit. These men absolutely get gaslit, because you can't sit here and tell me that these men have been valued and that they're so amazing and that women love them. And at the same time, you got what? Like, majority of black men who are single and childless? Like, really? At the same time, you've had narratives going on for decades of where are all the good men? And you can't even say where are all the good black men, because like, this narrative is seeped over even into other cultures too. So, but let me bring this up, because this, I think her response to me speaks to actually what's actually been going on and how women actually think. Again, guys, if you're here, like, share, subscribe. I know the drill.
Position. And recognizing that I am actually speaking and pouring into the ascension of black men when I said what I said.
I said what I said.
So out of the 50,000 plus comments posted on social, I only saw a handful that even considered the possibility of a bus owner being a more aspirational position, and recognizing that I am actually speaking and pouring into the ascension of black men when I said what I said. But see, no, some of y'all were too busy naming and shaming me personally.
Now, real quick, I don't know how her saying I'm only going to date a man if he owns the bus, I don't know how that is supposedly speaking life into black men. Like, I don't understand that, especially when she just had a white fiance. But anyways, like, really, because I'm like, if really your concern is for the improvement and the well-being of black men, then wouldn't you try to marry one? Like, I don't. But anyways, nevertheless, her telling Iyanla Vanzant, I'm only dating a bus driver. I'm only dating a bus driver if he owned the bus company. How is that building up the self-esteem? How is that building up the confidence of black men? What I'm getting from that is what you're doing isn't good enough. That's the message that I get. Maybe I'm wrong, but help me understand, those in the comment section, if I'm missing something. Help me understand how her saying I'm only dating a bus driver if he owns a bus is her speaking into the overall benefit or her belief in the intrinsic value of bus drivers. Let me continue this one because I was like, what? And I'm like, and again, if really you care, if a desire of yours was to help build up the community and to build up Black men, then I would think you would have been engaged to one. But anyways, let me continue.
And Black women in general as undesirable, gold diggers, and much worse. Now, I suspect that some of y'all are the same men that were bringing home C's and D's on your report cards, only to then be coddled by parents that said, well, that's okay, as long as you're doing your best.
Shaming language.
Well, listen, I love and believe in the excellence of Black men. So no, my dear, C's and D's or any other form of mediocrity is not okay.
Okay, and again, I want you guys to, let's listen to the tone here. What she's saying is that she is calling herself trying to raise the standard to what Black men can be. And it's funny because it's like the initial the initial conversation between her and Iyanla, I don't think Black men were even really brought up. It was just the whole conversation of like, who would you date, period. Like, it wasn't necessarily a race specific conversation. Now, obviously we know it became racial, right? Probably given the feedback and everything. But initially it was just a conversation of just dating standards, period. And like I said, because she actually was engaged to a white man that she, we'll review that, she ended up breaking the engagement off, then we know that she's open to dating and mating in anybody, as she alluded to in her video. But somehow it started with just like dating generally, right? Who would you date generally? And then now it shifted to Black men need to do better. Y'all notice that shift? And she's saying that she's encouraging Black men to try to do better. But what I'm hearing, honestly, is shaming language. It's, oh, well, you only got C's and D's, so this is all you could do. You only got C's and D's, so the best he could do is drive a bus. The best he could do is be a trade salesman. The best he could do is A, B, C, X, Y, and Z. But again, this is a false assumption, because even going back to the super chat that I got earlier, right, where the gentleman was like, look, he's almost at 100K. He's, second year in his career change, and he'll be well into six figures soon. And a lot of blue collar workers are well into their six figures, well into it, without the school debt, without the years wasted in college, without all of that quote unquote indoctrination, which there is an aspect of that. And so you have men out there who legitimately had good grades, who had solid grades, and they actually chose to not go to school, to not get a college education, to not take a white collar job, because they thought it was a better investment long term to minimize debt while still being able to get the same income as somebody with a white collar job, if not more, depending upon the different trajectory they take. And so, like I said, there are actually smart men who do a cost and risk analysis and say, hey, it's better for me to not get a college degree. It's actually better for me to go this trade route, because now I have to deal with all this college debt that I could end up paying for years. And I immediately am getting a really, really solid income. So when she's assuming that, oh, these are people who are just getting C's and D's, I'm like, either she's just not understanding what actually goes into the different kind of jobs, and quite frankly, the different amount of pay that these men can be getting. It honestly just sounds classist. Like, it literally sounds classist. If you want to talk about respectability politics, if you want to talk about all that, which is a whole other thing, but it's definitely a classist comment. And then to assume that just because you're a blue collar worker means that you got C's and D's and F's is not only is that not true, that's actually a bit offensive, because there are people that I actually know who went to college and still ended up deciding to be trade skill men or change their career or do whatever, because they actually figured out it was a better gig for them in the long run. But let's continue.
No, I will not create a soft place for you or anybody that I love to fall comfortably into the bigotry of low expectations.
Oh, God.
So I'm going to say one more time. There's absolutely nothing wrong with driving a bus. My mother, Gloria, drove one for years. But could it be that Black America has been sold a narrative of average, regular, and typical being good enough for us? Well, see, that's called
average, regular. So again, that is very classist. Quite literally, that's very classist. He said being average, regular, typical is not good enough. So I'm like, okay, I'm thinking, okay, if let's just take her advice. Is she saying that every single person in Black America should be a business owner? Is she saying that every single person should be like, are we talking about a divine nine, talented 10th kind of Black America that we want to believe in? Like, I'm trying to figure out what this actually translates to, because in this system that we live in capitalism, not everybody can be in the top. Not everybody can be an owner. Not everybody can be that. And that doesn't mean that a person who isn't a business owner, a person who isn't, you know, a multi-billionaire, it doesn't mean they don't have value, and it doesn't mean that they're not important to the society. But it's like, literally not everybody can have the exact same role. But that doesn't mean that they're mediocre. And it doesn't mean that they're lesser than. And again, going back to what she's saying, this assumes that blue collar workers are just kind of like the leftover men, or that they're the ones that just couldn't make it, and the best they could do was be a trade skillman. That's the best they could do. And it's like, that's, again, this is not true at all, because there are men who literally are like, who are very smart, and they did the math, and they're like, do you not understand that I'm going to be better off financially by completely overlooking the indoctrination of college that's going to try to feminize me, and going straight into a career where I could be making six figures within the first couple of years, minus the debt. Give me the freedom to go abroad if I want to. Give me the freedom to make investments. Give me the freedom to make my own schedule. Like, there are men who sat down, who actually had good grades, who were smart, who figured out that it was a better investment for them and a smarter investment for them to not go into a white collar position, to not get into thousands of dollars of debt. So to assume that taking the other trajectory is mediocre and average, when again, we depend upon these kind of jobs. I said, have plumbers go on a strike. Just have them go on a strike, or electricians, or even the construction workers, or people who work at, you know, water plants. Like, just have these men go on a strike. Just have them be like, you know what, whatever. Garbage men, right? Just have all these people who deal with the sewage, janitors, have these individuals go on a strike, truck drivers, have them go on a strike, and see how society would not radically be impacted. So it's like, again, these aren't jobs that are just like nice to have, not really important, not a big deal. It's like, these are actually essential jobs that we depend upon. So how is something that we depend upon that's essential to our well-being, right? And to our really the comforts that we have now depend upon these kinds of jobs. How is this average and mediocre? When we wouldn't even necessarily have the luxury to do some of these more to do some of these things. We wouldn't have the luxury to try to think about, okay, now I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to go to law school. Now I want to go to this. If you didn't have somebody sat down who actually built the building, who somebody went and created the roads, it's like somebody who was making sure that the water was clean. Like, these are all things that we depend upon. So how is that average and mediocre? That's what I don't understand about that. Again, not to mention that a lot of these dudes are walking around without school debt. Just saying. Literally just saying. Shout out to you, CD, with the 10. It says, a lot of Black women want to eliminate average when average is most people. They believe every Black man should be exceptional, same way they believe every Black woman should be seen as beautiful. That's all a part of the same delusion. So again, no lies told. First of all, there's nothing wrong with average, because average is like that's people are average. Like, most people in America are average, and there's literally absolutely nothing wrong with that. But it's crazy because I'm like, I don't know if this is supposed to be a pep talk, but to me, it's coming off as a bit condescending and quite frankly classist. And it's also delusional and based upon a false premise, because to assume that all blue collar workers have C, D's, and F's, that they were the ones who are failing in school, they don't have two brain cells to run together. So the best thing they could do is become a trade skilled man and literally avoid debt and be making six figures probably within the first couple of years of their training. Oh, these are the failures of society. Like, what are you even talking about? That doesn't make any sense. But let's continue, because we're almost done.
Called white supremacy. And in this case, it takes the form of conditioning Black Americans to happily accept being a permanent American underclass. What? But see, because I know the truth about Black folk in America, no, Average is not and will never be good enough for me. And the gag is, I don't think it's good enough for you either.
So I mean, I don't know if that was supposed to be the mic drop. Listen, I'll say this. A woman has a right to a preference. A woman wants to be with somebody who's college educated. If she wants to be with an entrepreneur, fine. But you don't have to go and completely like trash people who are in a different class or in a completely different industry just because that's not your cup of tea. Like I said, people who are in different lines of profession, that doesn't mean that they're mediocre. There are people who actually chose that because they like that. They like the freedom. They like working with their hands. They didn't want to go into debt. That's not mediocre. So to try to make this a problem of white supremacy, an issue of white supremacy, that there are more men who are not going to school and who are actually choosing to do jobs that give them the flexibility to make their own schedule, give them the flexibility to, really make more money without the debt. Like it just honestly didn't really make any sense to me, quite frankly. It sounded classist. It kind of sounded demeaning. And I don't understand how this became, again, another blame black men thing, or black men aren't good enough. They need to step up, because that was really the premise of the whole video. The whole premise of the video was, look, y'all need to step up, period. I've gotten my career. I've done what I need to do. I've been successful in my career. You guys aren't. You're mediocre. And so you need to step up. That's really what it boiled down to. And maybe that was in response to some comments she got. Maybe there's people who are trashing her. So I don't know the full context of it. But the message is, y'all need to do better. Again, the problem is, just because somebody is blue collar or they're not in a white collar position doesn't mean they're not making good money. Doesn't mean that they're not smart. Doesn't mean they got C's, D's, and F's in class. Doesn't mean that they're average. That's not at all. Like I said, there is people who are living very good lives, very above average lives, and they're doing okay. And also, by the way, most black people in America are average, including women. Because if that message was to black men, okay, we also now have to start talking to black women, who many of them are average, in some cases below average, 1/3 of them at or below the poverty line. Hello, somebody. And are really trying to like bash black men right now, and we can't even deal with ourselves and our sisters. Like, really? So it just was like, that didn't really make any sense to me. And then here's another thing. The primary reason most men are going to look at that, if that was supposed to be a pep talk, if that was supposed to be her trying to encourage black men to do whatever, let's just assume that was, most men are not going to take one thing that she said seriously for this reason. She's over here talking about, you guys need to step up, right? You guys need to not be average anymore. I'm not going to settle for average. You shouldn't either. This is all white supremacist propaganda. Y'all need to do better. We don't need to be having no D and F students. Y'all need to do better. Nobody's taking that seriously, because she already had a high value man that she would engage to, a CFO, a white CFO too, which I said, it's like very rare. If you look at the numbers, it's very rare for a black woman to get to where she can even be engaged, if not married to a white man. That's rare. So she already had a high value white man. She already had a man within her class who was willing to deal with her. So what happened? And so if we get to it, this was in essence, you guys, this was not too long ago. This was 2021 during quarantine. It says Eboni K Williams broke off engagement because fiance quarantined with his not so little kids. Y'all hear that? It wasn't because there was no affairs, extramarital affairs. We didn't hear of any communication, there's no talk of DV, none of that. All we know is that they broke off the engagement because he quarantined with his kids. Then it goes on to read, journalist and attorney Eboni K Williams, who recently made her debut on Bravo's Real Housewives of New York to rave reviews as the first Black cast member, revealed she's newly single after breaking off her engagement. The reason for the breakup was quarantine not going as planned for Williams and her then beau. So again, she already actually had a high value man who was willing to marry her. He was a CFO, a white one at that, again, which is very rare. She chose to break it off. She chose to break it off. So again, as a woman, she said she's about to be 40 if she's not, a successful career woman in her 40s who are trying to tell Black men to not be mediocre. That's essentially what that video. Not be mediocre. I'm here to tell you why most Black men are going to look at her and say, I call cap BS. Because it's same women who are trying to shame them for not living up to whatever her expectations are or not living up to her class, actually already was engaged to somebody in her class. And she broke it off. But let's continue. Let's get into why. Okay. The State of the Culture host broke the news during a visit to the Wendy Williams show last week to promote season 13 of the Housewives franchise. The former couple was doing wedding planning before the pandemic began and had been together for 4 years. This quarantine, I think, like a lot of couples, it made us tell the truth about our relationship. She told Williams before revealing he left her in New York to go to New Jersey to quarantine with his children, the majority of which are grown up. So again, quarantine, you know, that was a tough time for a lot of people. We don't know the full setup. I don't know if there was an argument in that involved, but it sounded like he decided to go quarantine with the kids. And for some reason, that is why they broke up. I don't understand why that needed to be an issue. I'm like, y'all couldn't work something out. Y'all couldn't quarantine together. Who knows? We don't know the whole story, but the story that they're giving is that he decided to quarantine with the kids who were almost grown. Okay, still with the kids. And then that's when they broke up. It says the quarantine. Oh, let me see. Okay. Let me see. Yeah. And so the former couple, again, they were doing wedding planning before the pandemic began and had been together for years. The quarantine, I think, like a lot of couples, it made us tell the truth about our relationship. She told Williams before revealing he left her. Yeah. Okay, it said he actually did not quarantine with me. He has 3 children, 2 of which are young adults, and he chose to quarantine in New Jersey with his semi-adult children. She said, for me, listen, I'm not a parent. I get that they're number one, but I need to be number one. Wendy and I wasn't number one, so I needed to move on. Okay, let me just read that part again. She said, again, for me, listen, I'm not a parent. I get that. They're number one, but I need to be number one. Wendy. And I wasn't number one. So I needed to move on. Said she came to this realization after 6 months of not quarantining with her fiance. I still was holding out hope. We were doing the couples counseling and everything. She said, he's a lovely man, just wasn't for me. He's older. He'd been there, done that, didn't really want a new baby and all that stuff. I want that stuff, Wendy. With that said, William says she's interested in seeing what, as in who, is out there to get to know next. She's fully vaccinated and not necessarily eager to mingle, but knows she needs to put herself out there as outside opens back up in the New York City. I'm an introvert, she says, but I know the man's not going to come knocking on my door, so I have to get out. So I mentioned before, y'all want to know why men aren't going to take her pep talk seriously? For that reason. She was already in a relationship with a CFO, a high-value man on her level attorney. She's a beautiful woman. She's very attractive, Real Housewives. So she's been around successful men, arguably for decades now, right? And about to be in her 40s. She broke it off because he decided to quarantine with his kids. Again, she broke it off. She broke off the engagement with her high-value CFO, white husband-to-be, because he decided to quarantine with his 3 kids that were semi-adults, whatever that means. Maybe they were young adults transitioning. Look, you still need help. That was a really stressful time for some people. That, to me, at least on the outside looking in, seems like a really bogus reason. I want to believe there's other stuff going on, but I'm like, if that's it, if it was really because you're mad that you felt like he put his kids number one, that seems kind of crazy. Like, it's just, honestly, it seems crazy. I don't know what else was going on. You know, there's 2 sides to every story, but if it was really like, he should have quarantined with me, not his kids, I'm like, y'all couldn't come to a compromise? You really couldn't quarantine with him? Like, that just seems ridiculous. But my point to this is, no man is going to look at this and take that seriously. The pep talk that she caught herself giving to Black men, where it's like, y'all need to do better. Y'all need to not be the DF students. They're going to look at her and be like, you can't even keep a man. You had a high value man and you can't keep him. So we're not going to sit here and listen to you. And so as I'm saying, like, most men aren't going to take that seriously. They're not going to take that seriously. And this kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about women being gaslit, men being gaslit, right? I literally went in line and I was like, why are blue collar men gaslit? Or like, why are they not seen as like good options? And the women are just like, what are you talking about? We love blue collar men. We love blue collar men. If they can work hard, oh, they're sexy, yada yada. Like all these women all of a sudden love blue collar men. When you got the whole manosphere full of blue collar men who are just like, I can't get the time of day. You know, I take care of myself. You know, I'm clean. I'm a hard worker. I'm loyal. And these women won't give me no options. So it's like, so somehow there's all these women who love all these blue collar men, but you have over 50% of single black men who are, you know, black men who are single and childless. You got men grabbing the passports because they're having a hard time finding women who see them as valuable. So that's like, this is the narrative going on, right? But no, women love blue collar men, whatever. Then Eboni K Williams comes on, and again, is a prime example. She's literally like, not only am I not going to date the bus driver, I'm going to let all of you guys know who are in this profession or a similar profession that basically you guys were C, D, and F students. You guys were average or below average. That's what she did. Okay. I'm going to let all y'all know you were average or below average. This is what she did, right? Now, again, the reason I'm saying this is some gaslighting at the finest. Because in one instance, we're talking about, oh, we value men. You have a prime example here where a woman is clearly showing actually how a woman feel about blue collar men. And then we go and look at the one who caught herself trying to give these men a pep talk and try to encourage them to live up to a better standard. And she literally broke off an engagement with her own high value man who was in her class. She broke up because he decided to stay with his own kids in quarantine. Just ridiculous. And so these kinds of different situations to me are why it's like, we're not really serious. This is not a serious conversation. We're not even really getting to the root issue. We're not. A woman wanted to date in her class or above her class is not necessarily uncommon. Women are hypergamous by nature. So usually they're going to date or marry somebody at their class or above their class. If you are a woman and you've been around for decades and you're having a hard time finding men in your class who want to date and marry you, and you actually have a documented history of breaking up with men, not because that they had bad communication, not because they weren't nice, not because they cheated, not because they were disloyal, but because they wanted to quarantine. That's why you broke up. Is the issue then that men need to do better? Is the issue then that there's all these blue collar men? Or is the issue that you actually don't know how to get along with men in your own class? And initially, what I liked about the interview with Iyanla was that she was challenging her to be like, basically, your expectations are off. Your dating expectations are off. That's basically what the whole conversation was initially. And I'm like, okay, this is a good conversation because this is true. But then she came back and she doubled down and she called herself trying to pep talk men, black men specifically, but it really was just like a shaming fest of like, you guys aren't good enough. You're not good enough. And then lo and behold, we look at her history and we find out it's also not perfect, right? To the point where you already had your high value man. You had the chance at your high value man and you broke it off because he quarantined with his kids. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Now, again, I don't know the full context. Like I said, maybe there was other stuff going on, but she didn't say it. She said it was just, he wanted to be with the kids. And I'm like, y'all really couldn't quarantine together. Y'all couldn't get a house. Y'all both got enough money. He's CFO. You're a journalist and an attorney. Y'all could have found a place big enough to quarantine with everybody. So it just, it just didn't make any sense. Shout out to you, Lost in Translation. It says someone needs to send her the Kevin Samuels box set as a gift to RIP. Shout out to you, Lost in Translation. Thank you for the support. Shout out to you. Let me see. Friedman, it says exactly. BC does not convey status. Yeah, the status thing for sure, for sure. Eugene Steele, it says Eboni broke the engagement because she was selfish. The man cares about his kids and she wants him for himself. I don't know. Like, to me, I don't think you should ever, as a woman, put a man in the position to care about his kids. Like, to me, it's like, you don't have to do that. Like, you can let the man love his kids and still be his wife. Like, I don't understand. Now, granted, I didn't marry a man with kids, so I can't say I fully understand the dynamics, but I'm like, I don't see why those have to be contradictory. Why can't you let a father be with his kids and respect that, but then still also be his wife? Like, I don't get it. I don't. Okay. CD, it says a lot of Black women want to eliminate Average when average is most people. Yeah, average is most people. Nothing wrong with that. They believe every black man should be exceptional. Same way they believe every black woman should be seen as beautiful. Oh, I think I already read that one. Okay, trying to make sure I forgot everything. Okay, I wanted to make sure I got everything, guys. Y'all know the drill. Like, share, subscribe, hit the super chat. So, yeah. So really, at the end of the day, I think this interview to me, I think was really impactful. And we know it was impactful because it started this domino effect of conversations. Why? Because this is people's real life. She's an example, right? She's an example of a educated woman who basically wants men on or above her level. She's a prime example, right? And what we also see, shout out to you, Dr. Thunder. And what we also see is that many men can relate to this. Many men can relate to being the blue collar men and probably being told, oh, you're not good enough. Prime example. I interviewed TJ Randolph. Shout out to her. I interviewed her like, I think a couple of months back. And she literally in her interview talked about how she had to change her expectations in order to receive her husband, right? Who's a truck driver, who has given her the freedom to be able to basically retire early and be at home, be a stay-at-home wife, right? He has given her that luxury as a truck driver, but she previously having been an educated woman, at a certain point would not have considered him. She admitted to this. She admitted this out of her own lips. She was just like, yeah, she had to change some ideas. She had to change expectations to be able to receive her husband. Now, like I said, now that she did that, she's living the best life ever, right? She's literally living the best life ever with a man who doesn't have a college degree, over her working in the trucking industry, giving her the life that she always wanted. But before, she was blocking that blessing because she had these arbitrary expectations that don't really amount to anything. Okay, so the man has a college degree. Great. How much debt is he having to deal with? And this is no shade to those who have college degrees, right? I have a college, so it's like, I'm not shading on you, but what I'm saying is we have these expectations that don't necessarily amount to anything. We saw it in her breakdown when she was talking about why all these blue collar men are C, D, and F students. When I was just like, this is a total misunderstanding. If you've ever actually talked to these men, you'll understand that actually a lot of them are quite logical. A lot of them are logical, and they're thinking, you know what? Again, I want to overlook the feminist indoctrination that's going to happen in college. I don't want to get in school debt. I like working with my hands. I like having this level of freedom with my job. I like not having to be stuck in the office, like whatever it may be. And for them, that was the best option, not only personally as far as fulfillment, but actually financially. But, I think the thing, and you guys alluded to this sometimes in the comments, the thing that they don't want to say is at the end of the day, it's a class thing. It's really a class thing. She alluded to it. She didn't say it directly, but there's a level of prestige that comes with some of these jobs, saying, oh, he was a doctor, or he was a lawyer, or he's a business. There's a level of prestige. And that's what women want. That's what I think a lot of ladies want, especially when they get to when they're educated, to when they reach a certain level of success. Again, they want a man at that level, ideally above. This is documented. So I want to share. So there's two other things I want to share with you guys, and then we will if I have time, I may open up the call-ins. We'll see. Because the fact that this spurred on such an important conversation to me is indication of how relevant it is. A lot of people resonate with this. She was just one person that, this was the tip of an iceberg, something that kind of spurred on a conversation, but it got so much traction because it's people's lived experience. It's women who were saying, he's not on my level. He was great. He was this, he was that. He's not on my level. It's men saying, I have a home. Like I have a stable job. I actually look nice. I keep my body together. I'm healthy, and I don't get the time of day because maybe I'm online and women you don't even come across the woman's profile because they filter by college education, which you can do, or this woman wouldn't consider me because it's like just all these arbitrary things. So now here's another thing I want to share. So I went into earlier what I said when we're the lovely ladies earlier in the broadcast when I tweeted and I was like, basically, why are women always overlooking these men, right? And then later, just like, what are you talking about? I love these men. I love blue collar workers. They have wives. They have houses. They're successful. So you had all these ladies who were saying, no, we support blue collar men. What are you talking about? You're lying. You're making this stuff up. And then lo and behold, okay, here is an expert. Here's an expert from, let's see, a book that kind of breaks this down pretty much verbatim. And again, I'm probably going to be reviewing this. I'm going to be reviewing this, I think, more in detail next week regarding just all this dating stuff, because I've been doing little experts. But really, what it shows is that college-educated Black women will eliminate Black men from their dating pool if they don't have college degrees. This is what the evidence actually shows. Oh, I thought I was reading that to you guys. And here's an expert. It says, indeed, some educated Black women in our study said that they were quick to ignore inquiries from Black men who did not have college degrees or were pursuing risky careers such as musicians and small business owners. And it's funny because they say these lovely ladies say they want business owners, they want women who are entrepreneurial. Oh, he can't be a bus driver, he has to own the bus, right? But what the data is actually suggesting is that now these women, they are overlooking musicians, which I could understand, that's risky, but they're also overlooking small business owners. Why? Because they don't want to be with the student until he's successful and already has the money. These women wanted racial and educational homogamy. Homogamy. I don't know if I said that right. Let me see. Wait, where'd you go? Where did you go? Sorry guys, I just lost it. Okay, homogamy. But it seemed out of reach. Looking around their offices and other professional spaces, they could see plainly that most of their colleagues were white. That alone was enough to drive them to online dating. Janice, who hoped to date a Black man, put it this way. But again, I reiterate, some educated Black women in our study said that they were quick to ignore inquiries from Black men who did not have college degrees. Again, I'm not making this stuff up, y'all. This isn't, and then just like wake up one day and just like, let me just lie on Twitter and just make up scenarios that never existed. We have documented evidence of this. You have the manosphere that literally speaks to this. You have this video that recently went viral, which was another indication of how women's hypergamous nature, especially women who have college degrees, will completely overlook blue-collar men. To the point to where even on online dating websites where they go on there hoping to expand their options to other races of men or to men outside of their location, they will filter them. You know, if they don't have a college degree, they will not respond to them. Again, this is documented evidence. I didn't just make this stuff up. So again, when I said, why are modern women over here gaslighting blue collar men as if they love them, as if they're just like, they've always loved them. They've always been their choice. All women want is just a good, hardworking man. It's like, y'all lying. Y'all lying like a rug. Y'all lying for your teeth. At least what I appreciate about Eboni K Williams was that at least she was honest about it. At least she said what women have been thinking and saying and doing forever. She said it. She absolutely said it. And again, here's some documented evidence of it. It's an expert from a book that I'm planning on reviewing within the next week or two again. But it says, what article is that, by the way? Yeah, this is a book, The Dating Divide. I'm like I said, I have a whole live planned. I have just been trying to gather up receipts because there's so many different receipts. There's so much meat in that book. But I wanted to read that excerpt from the book. It's called The Dating Divide. I think it's like race or something. I forget the exact name, right? I posted about it before. But it's basically a book that looks at online dating and looks at online dating from different genders and different races, right? And so it tracks trends. It looks at also educational backgrounds, height. We saw that women were heightist, surprise, surprise. We saw that women were hypergamous, surprise, surprise. We saw that women of all minorities preferred white men, surprise, surprise. So there's all these different trends that they were tracking in that study, or that they found based upon that study. And so I'm going to share that in a later live. But that section right there, I wanted to highlight because, again, this is just debunks all of these women who are just like, oh, we love blue collar men. Just like, not necessarily true. Now, to be fair, It says college educated women. So perhaps, I don't know, maybe women who don't go to college, women who are themselves are working in more, maybe they're grocery store clerks or whatever, maybe they are more open to blue collar men, maybe they really do respect them, maybe, I don't know. But we know that it's college educated women are the ones who are leading these conversations online. They're the ones who have the platforms. They're the ones working at these media companies. They're the ones, the college educated ones. Even though college educated women, Black women, are minority, nevertheless, they're the ones leading the conversation, right? They're the ones going and saying, these men need to do better, they're not on a level, et cetera, et cetera. Those are the women who will look at a Black man who's a blue collar worker and say, nope, not good enough. Sorry. You don't have a college degree, I'm not dealing with you. Bunk if you have, if you're making more than 6 figures. Forget if you have a home. Forget if you are out of debt. It don't matter. You're not even in the conversation if you don't have a college degree. Period. And like I said, you want anecdotal evidence, since we all love anecdotes. I talked to TJ Randolph again. Shout out to her a few months ago, and she admitted, a college-educated Black woman, she admitted that she had to literally humble herself and change her expectations before she would ever consider dating her now husband, who is a truck driver, a blue collar worker, who also gives her the freedom to now be stay at home fully. But she also admitted the fact that at a certain time in her life, she wasn't considering that. Why? Because he wasn't on her level. And he himself told her that he got to the point where he wasn't even approaching certain kind of Black women. He wasn't even approaching educated Black women because he knew he was going to be turned down, because it happens. So, like I said, don't be gaslighting me and don't be gaslighting men. We all know what time it is. Okay. And yes, what this shows me is hypergamy, it's not just about the money. It is the social status. It's the social status. That means so much to the ladies, down to the point to where you will turn down a man who actually meets the money requirement because he doesn't maybe reach the class requirement, because he doesn't have the social status. Even if he has the same amount of money, or maybe even in some cases more money, you will do that. Even if he's in a better financial position. There are women out there who have reached a certain class aspiration through college who will turn down those men because for some reason socially it's not good enough for them. It doesn't have the prestige for them. Even if they have the money, even if they have the like I said, they have the assets, the stability, whatever. I'm not making this stuff up. So here's one more thing I want to review, because I think this kind of sums it up. And again, one thing I appreciate about these ladies is that they're being honest. I'm like, at least you're being honest. You know what I mean? I'd much rather someone go and say, yeah, these are my expectations. I'm like, I have no problem with anyone who wants to have an expectation. No problem with it at all. Now, that doesn't mean that your expectations are going to be met, right? They don't have to be met. But there's nothing wrong with you having them nonetheless. Shout out to David X, who says, if society ever loses all the tech, blue-collar men will be the only ones worth something. That's true. Absolutely. It says dealing the real 199. It says, at least she got us away from talking about JPG. Shout out to you. And look, I know y'all but JPG was getting some numbers, some views for some channels. It says, if average is not good enough, she would not benefit from the comforts provided by the labor of average working people. That's what I'm saying. Like, what are we even talking about? We depend upon quote unquote average. Jamari with the 5, it said she wanted to reject Black men in general because the men she wanted rejected her in order to make herself feel better. Oh, so you're saying there's some like reverse psychology thing going on here. I wouldn't be surprised at least. Because like I said, most men aren't looking at her or taking her seriously because it's like, really? You're over here completely demeaning an entire class of men. Why are you even talking about this? Like, just stay in your class, whatever. When the men in your class, you were engaged to one and you broke it off. Like, how are we supposed to take that seriously? Men aren't taking that seriously. They're really not. Okay. So here's another one I want to review. This is a recent one by Kim Foster. It's called Why I Don't Date Blue Collar Men. That's what it's called. I'm going to play it for you guys. I don't know if I can show. I'm just going to play it for you guys because I know sometimes people get weird with copyright. So I'm just going to play the audio. But this is a one that she just did where she literally breaks down. Oops, where'd it go? She literally breaks down why she doesn't date blue collar men. Like Kimberly Nicole Foster, we all know. She's been a very successful in her own right. I think it has her own separate publication for Harriet. She's an open Black feminist. And again, I appreciate her honesty. She's about to tell us why her as a Black educated woman, how she would not consider dating a blue collar Black man. And of course, we know it's a Black man because she's openly said that her preference is Black men. So we're going to play it and then we'll break it down. Okay.
Somebody asked me, who would you date? Would you date blue collar? And I said, I would date somebody who makes less money than me, but I probably would not date somebody who is blue collar.
Again, y'all heard that. She'd date somebody who made less money than her, but she would not date blue collar. Nope, can't do it, not doing it.
And they said, well, why? Why not? This is a real issue that I've never seen people really reckon with. Because so somebody weeks ago asked me, okay, who would you date? This person, would you date blue collar? Would you not? And I said, I would date somebody who makes less money than me, but I probably would not date somebody who is blue collar. I do date men who have college degrees. And they said, well, why? Why not? And this is my real response. And this is a real issue that I've never seen people really reckon with. Because
so again, shout out to her for being honest. Let me just say that. Shout out to her for being completely and totally honest. Because y'all heard the first part of the show, right? Where a lot of women were pretending that this doesn't happen. Right? They're pretending like there aren't women out there who specifically are like, I'm not dating blue collar men. I'm not overlooking. Like they're pretending that this is just some crazy thing that I made up. So shout out to her, for Kimberly Nicole Foster, for being honest about why she's not dating blue collar men. We're going to now see why. But let's get into it.
I am a Black woman who has access to so many upper middle class, above average earning Black women. And I see how they've navigated their romantic lives. And this is different generations, different nationalities, different ethnicities, all Black women. And so many of them have, particularly older women, had no, college degree requirement, honestly, because if you're a certain age, you can't really have a college degree requirement. And
so, okay, real quick. So she's talking about how she knows a lot of Black women who basically upper middle class, whatever, college Black women who are educated, able to work in these nice office jobs, right? Able to work in these corporate offices with air conditioning and computers and probably making six figures, 1 to 6 figures. She knows these women. Okay. Now interesting. That's the whole, I think, who was I listening to? I think it was Mr. Obsidian I listened to real quick, his breakdown, part of his breakdown. He was just like, well, unless you're lesbian, it doesn't matter. Like, who cares if you know women? Do you know high value men? Like, that's who you need to be talking to. Because it's like, which is true, if you are a college educated woman, right? If you are in that particular class, the hypergamous nature of women dictates that you are only going to be dealing with men in that class or above. So why are blue collar men why are they even a topic of conversation? Like, why are we talking about the men in your class or above your class? But anyways, let me continue. This is there, just picky this. Oh wait, no. Okay.
Date Black men, like the pool just is not there. Had no income requirement and partnered these men, married these men, and the results were disastrous. The class difference, the resentment that comes from that is absolutely disastrous. Something that Kevin Samuels nor the rest of these men are really contending with is what happens when there is a large class difference, not just financial, like socioeconomic difference, but class difference, meaning what do you do for fun?
Okay, so you notice how she mentioned resentment. Notice how she mentioned the amount of resentment that comes from that. Who do you think in that dynamic is going to be more resentful? If you are say you are a upper middle class Black woman, you're going to these different corporate parties, you're hobnobbing with other women and going and having wine tasting and perhaps tea tasting, and you going to the Napa, just having that kind of experience, the mixers, the lounge. That's your experience, right? You're essentially aspiring for this more nice, luxurious, hypergamous, soft lifestyle. That is your experience. And you're with a man who's a blue collar worker. He may be making really, really good money, but the nature of being a blue collar, you may be a little more rough and gruff. You're not necessarily thinking about all the time the soft life. You know what I mean? Like, that's not, you're making good money, you're stable, but you're running in different social circles. Who in that dynamic do you think is actually going to be more resentful? The one who was aspiring to a certain class, to a certain hypergamous elite setup, elite social circle, or the one who was just happy making money, happy doing what he's doing? The class doesn't matter to him as long as he's able to pay bills. Who do you think in that setup is going to be more resentful? Without her saying it, I think we can probably assume that it's going to be the women who are aspiring, again, for an elite kind of social status. They're the ones who are going to be resentful that the men that they're with do not reflect that social status that they are aspiring to maintain. It's not the men. It is the women. And again, I'm not making this stuff up. What I showed to you a few minutes previous to this, that data from the book, The Dating Divide, from the two sociologists, showed that yes, college-educated women will absolutely filter out other men who are not college-educated. Notice they did not say that for college-educated men. They said college-educated women will absolutely filter out men who do not have college degrees from their dating pool. Women do this. So again, who of that setup, if it is a woman with a college degree who's in a upper middle class setup and she's dating somebody who maybe makes as much money but is in a different social, is maybe considered blue collar and doesn't have the same class aspirations, who do you think of the two is going to be more resentful? Anyways, let's continue with this one. Okay.
Who do you hang out with? What books do you read? What newspaper? Like, the idea that is just going to be so easy for both parties to surmount is crazy. I have never seen that happen. What I have seen happen is women saying, oh, that does not matter. We can be partnered. And the men realizing, oh, I cannot fucking handle this.
So wait, what? I was following her until it became the men's fault. I'm like, what? Now listen. Now there are scenarios out there where men are uncomfortable if the woman makes more money. I'm not going to say that does not exist, but in my experience, right, what I've observed, and even what I've taught, no, because I know couples where the woman makes more money. I know that to this day, and they're happily married. A primary issue when there is a big difference in either money being made, class, or whatever, a big issue can become if there is a sense of disrespect that comes from it. Take it for an example, the Eboni K Williams. We just had that conversation earlier, right? We were looking at her stuff and she was talking to blue collar men and she was talking down to them. She was very condescending. She was incredibly condescending, and she was saying as if she was trying to, she was trying to pep talk them and trying to encourage them. But really, if you listen to her tone, what she was saying, it was incredibly condescending. Y'all the same men that probably got C's and D's. Y'all just average, below average. Y'all can't do better. Like, she was condescending. And so again, from what I've observed, and what I think really goes on is anytime there's this, you have the college educated woman who's with a blue collar man. It doesn't work if there's not a sense of respect. If the woman with the college degree looks down on the man for whatever reason, because maybe he's not a social class, because he doesn't know how to get along at a corporate circle as much. Maybe he chews his, eats food with his mouth open. Maybe he doesn't have those social cues. Maybe he's a little rough around the edges, right? He feels uncomfortable playing bocce ball. Maybe that is a little different. And to me, honestly, those are minor differences. If you really love somebody, you guys love each other, and there's a willingness to open and learn and to learn how to engage in the different circles, then that's not a big deal. You go into a company party and y'all are playing bocce ball. Okay, you can put on a collared shirt. You can put on a suit. Like, if somebody is really interested in somebody else's life and you guys are serious about loving one another and wanted to get along, you can learn how to get along at a corporate party. It's not a huge deal. But the issue becomes when there's the resentment, when there's he's not on the social class that I aspire to, and you feel like internally that you settled. In my opinion, that is where the breakdown can come down. It's not necessarily so much the class, I think, as much as it is, what does that represent? And if that woman is really about class aspirations, if the prestige really truly matters to her, it really truly matters to her that she's going to be able to brag on her friends about her husband, if that is a level of importance, it can be somewhat a sense of embarrassment to her. It can be a sense of resentment. Even if he's making that money, even if he's keeping things together, even if whatever, if he's not able to give her the kind of prestige that she desires, that's where I think the breakdown comes from. Again, guys, if you're on here, like, share, subscribe, support your favorite content creators. Shout out to you, No One, with the $4.99. You guys, y'all know the drill. If you like what's going on, if you like what you're hearing, the best way to support me is through CASHAPP, VENMO, and Super Chat. As always, I'll be sure to acknowledge and read all Super Chats. It says, it's all a trap without the money, class, or status. She treats all men, blue, white collar, like crap. The degree is just another virtue signal. No, interesting. Absolutely interesting. Yeah, and that's good point. That is not to assume just because you have a college degree does not mean you're also not going to be disrespected, because you can't. If you're with a woman who just is misandrous completely, it don't matter. You could have 3 degrees, right? And you still about to be getting disrespect because she don't like you. But again, that's what's not being talked about here. She's talking about resentment. Most men aren't sitting around resentful at the fact that, oh, wow, my wife is in a higher social class. Like, men don't really care like that. As long as she looks good and is nice and can cook a good meal, it don't really matter to the dude. It really don't matter. The issue becomes if you start looking down on him and if you start using your class as a way to pretend like you're better and be uppity and then be condescending, as Eboni K Williams was to blue collar men. That's where the issue and the resentment comes from. So let's continue.
There is no attention paid to the resentment from men when they are on the lower class and they have to look up to their female partner financially and socioeconomically. And there's all of these things that you don't know, experiences that you have to learn. I have seen that firsthand.
Again, I don't disagree with what she's saying. What is not being added to that context is the resentment because she's in certain circles, or is the resentment because she is using her access to, quite frankly, different spaces that in some instances may even promote the white supremacy that these Black women say they're trying to fight against, right? In some instances that promote certain ideas like feminism, that things that have literally be antithetical to the Black world experience. Is he really jealous of that? Or is he jealous that they're using that access to those spaces as a way to demonize and as a way to basically shame men, to say you're not good enough? What is it? Is it the aspiration for social status? Or is it the fact that you're using your current position to demonize and demean and talk down all these men and shame these men? I think it's the latter. Because again, if these blue collar men who aspired to this particular social class, then they probably wouldn't be blue collar. They wouldn't be trade skillmen. They actually would have gone in those circles. They would have tried to get into certain colleges and get into fraternities. And they would have lived the life, they would have made decisions that would have shown that that level of social status was of value and importance to them. But the very nature that these men maybe chose to do jobs that, again, they're working with their hands, they're having freedom, they're not connected to some of these different systems, shows me that by nature, a lot of these dudes probably don't care. They don't really care that you can go, again, like I said, to a company party and play bocce ball and drink champagne. They probably don't really care. It's like, who cares? Like, as long as I can pay my bills. And so I think that's what's being missed from this conversation. It's not necessarily that they have access to stuff. A lot of the dudes don't care. It's how are you using that access to treat your man? Are you disrespecting him? Are you demeaning him? Are you talking down on him? Are you acting like you're better than him? Or are you still seeing him as someone to be respected? Are you still honoring him as your man? So I think that is where I think that's what's being missed from the conversation. Again, guys, if you're here, like, share, subscribe. Y'all know the drill. Okay. Let's continue. I'm almost done here.
And I'm not saying that, sorry, trying not to yell anymore in the new microphone. I'm not saying that these men don't deserve love, care, and affection partnership. I am saying that because I have seen the deep resentment that those kinds of dynamics create, that I would not just suggest anybody just do that willy-nilly. Like it's nothing. Like, oh, who cares? It's just money. No.
But so again, I don't necessarily disagree with her assessment that there can be resentment created. Where I disagree is the fact that she's making it out to be that the men are the ones who get resentful and that it's not perhaps on both sides, or even more specifically, why these men get resentful. Okay, let's say that it's true. Let's say that it is true that these men get resentful, that these women have social status. Why? Because like I mentioned, for a lot of these men, if social status was a prime level of importance, they probably would have actually gone to college. They probably actually would have aspired to get into those situations. There are men out there who are smart, who are very logical, who specifically chose not to go into college because they didn't want to have to deal with those specific systems, because they didn't want to have to get into college debt, because that didn't matter to them. They wanted to have the freedom of their schedule. They wanted to make money. They wanted to be free of some of that stuff. They didn't want to have to deal with the indoctrination. So again, for a lot of blue-collar men, social status is not necessarily an aspirational goal for them, because if it was, they probably would have went to college, or they would have chosen particular jobs that would have put them in that bracket. So of the two people in that dynamic, the men and the woman, who are the ones who actually desire the social aspiration? Is it the women who have a proven record of showing that they specifically filter blue-collar men, non-college educated men out of their dating because they want men who are on their social status or higher? Is it them who are going to be resentful, or is it the men who don't really care about the social status? Again, I think it's the women in many instances. And again, a lot of the breakdown, I don't think it's class as much as it is the respect. Can a woman who is with a man of a different class, can she respect him in the way that he needs to be? And a lot of times when I have seen or heard of men who they do start to feel resentful, or they do start to have issues with women who make a lot more money, that dynamic is being left out of the conversation. The way that she's treating him, whether or not he still feels like she's respecting him, treating him like a man, treating him like he deserves respect, that he needs respect. That's the missing link. And again, I'm not saying there aren't men out there who don't by nature feel uncomfortable with women who make money. I'm sure that does exist on some level. But for a lot of men, it's not the money as much as it is, what does that money and what does that college degree mean for how she's going to treat me? And if her college degree means she's going to look down on me and say that I just was a CD student, and she's going to forever see me as her third or fourth choice and be resentful, I don't want that disrespect. And so I think that's the missing link from her analysis. That's the missing link. So anyways, guys, that is what I wanted to break down. Again, if you're on here, like, share, subscribe. Be sure to share some love on the super chat, Cash App. I do have a few more minutes, I think, to open up the call line. Let's see what I got. I see you, Mr. Z. I see you, Mr. Z. I know you were eager to hop up. Yeah, okay. So, all right, so I have a few minutes. I'm gonna go on a quick break, you guys. If you want to see some calls, like, share, subscribe, hit the Cash App, hit the super chat, support your favorite content creators. Let's go on a quick little break, and then let's see what we can do. What's going on, Game Changer? I think Mrs. Z, I saw you on here. If you want to call in. Can you, Game Changer, you there? You there?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry about that.
All good. All good. So
okay,
what's your topic?
So yeah, no, very, very good show. Very, very interesting show. And I like your perspective on it. And I wanted to get your thoughts on this because this is a theory that I've been working with, but okay. I don't have the access to the salon that you do. So you get the inside scoop.
Access to the salon.
Yeah. So I feel that, or I strongly believe that every man is being gaslit.
Okay.
I don't really blame the women. I think that the women are hiding exactly how interested they are in a particular group of men. So they hide behind insults, kind of like, you know, something a 5 to 10-year-old would do to a girl that he likes.
Yeah. No, definitely. I could see that.
And the reason why I believe this, to support my theory, I will say that every social economic class of Black men has a pejorative. If you're educated, you're lame. If you are blue collar, you're regular. If you're Pookie Ray Ray, you're dusty. You know, it's like, oh wow, how can I win? Well, the truth of the matter is you're already winning. You know, what I'm seeing is Black women getting with these guys and then saying, oh yeah, you're not my first choice, just to say I like educated men. You know, yes, I'm with you, but I like educated men. Just don't feel too good about yourself. Don't go bragging and think you're doing something because, you know, you're my second choice. I think it's really just humble. And that's why you are getting those messages. Some of those women, not all, but some of those women probably really do like blue collar guys. They just don't tell the blue collar guy that is asking for their number that that's what they like. You know, they don't tell the blue collar guy that they're out on a date with, that that's what they're like. You know, just like some women like educated guys, you know, but they'll say, oh yeah, well, I normally date the thugs, but you know, I'll give you a chance. I'll give you a chance if you're nice to me, if you treat me right. You know, I get a feeling that it's a lot of that going on. And that's why, you know, the message received by you today, it seems like it's all over the place. Like, what are you doing? You're gaslighting me. You're gaslighting the guys. You know, I think that is really that going on. It's a combination of coy with negotiation tactics and a lot of stuff going on.
Yes. Okay. So you're saying that there's a woman out there who actually attracts to blue collar men, but for whatever reason, they won't own up and say it.
Exactly.
I think you're absolutely right. No, for sure. I definitely think there's a level of truth to that. Another thing that I didn't mention, which is actually needs to be noted. I know when, you know, Kimberly Nicole Foster mentioned these women dating out of their class, right? And essentially condescending to the level of dating a blue collar man, because that's what it is, right? You're kind of lowering your standards to date a blue collar man. What's being missed from that scenario is that those women probably almost 100% of the time, I would argue, were sexually attracted to those blue collar men.
Exactly.
They looked the part, because all of these hypergamous standards magically go out the door if the man looks good enough. If he's a blue collar man coming in with like a Derek Jackson body type, even if we think of that story between Grabo Union and I think it's like Daddy's Little Girl, right?
Right.
She's a high-powered attorney and he's a blue collar man, you know, and she had all these standards, but lo and behold, all he had to do is, you know, just look a particular way, and fast forward, now he's owning his own business that his wife funded, his attorney wife, because he looked the part. So that's one thing that's being missed from like the times that these women out of the goodness of their heart decide to date and marry out because, you know, the class doesn't matter. It's because he looked good. They're not talking about short, bald men with beer belly. They're talking about the blue collar men that they're willing to date look the part. Okay, for sure.
Attractive men is its own category of men, you know, that, yeah, it does exceed all others. That you're in a class of your own.
Gravity doesn't apply over there.
I'm sorry?
Right.
No, I was saying gravity doesn't apply to those guys.
Well, I mean, no, I think it still does. Hear me out for a second.
Okay.
Yes, attractive is a class, and yes, it does give you more points than being educated. And you know, if a woman has a desire for blue collar guys or even a bad boy fetish, you know, it is a class of its own. But let's not mistake it. You know, they do have put downs for that class of guy too. That is why they call Michael B. Jordan corny. You know, they always seem to have a neg for each and every single category of men, even if he is exceptional in that. It's kind of like that song, Mr. Big Stuff, Who Do You Think You Are? You're never going to get my, it's like, wait, what? You know, there is a certain negging that's going on. I believe negging is a term. It's something that they do. Something.
No, that's a perfect word. Yeah. No, that's the perfect word.
That's
it's something that guys do to women, like, oh yeah, you're beautiful, but you know, you're beautiful for an old chick. I think that's what they're doing. I think that's part of their seduction technique. And because it's being done on a mass platform, it's kind of making them look all over the place. You know, that's what I'm getting. You know, and even attractive guys, even the Michael B. Jordans can get that corny comment, or, you know, I have friends who are considered to be, he's too pretty for me, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
BS.
Or actually, you know, there are those girls that claim to not like muscles.
whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't take, like I said, don't take women so seriously. Just look at their actions.
Exactly. And that's what I was getting at. Like, that's what I was getting at. That's what I was saying. It's all gaslighting. You know, when they say they don't like the blue collar guys, this gaslighting. When they say that they do like them, for some it's gaslighting. They're all over the place, and that's because they really just want a better deal. You know, they don't want the guy to know how much she's into them.
I mean, just like Eboni K Williams, who cares so much about the empowerment of Black men that she
was with a white dude.
White dude. And I'm not hating on her, but I'm like, I call cap, because I'm like, if you really, really cared about the empowerment of the black men, then like you likely would have tried to marry one. You would have tried to ensure that you are continuing that legacy. You're somehow actively working with Black men. You're trying to understand. So it was like, no, to me, that whole thing was just gaslighting. It was like a backhanded slap while she's pretending like she's trying to encourage them when they don't really want or need her encouragement. Because they're like, by the way, can you just deal with why your relationship with the men in your class didn't work out? We don't need you to try to lecture us.
Thank you.
So
well, the funny thing about that, in addition to gaslighting, it's also deflection, because when they were talking about the bus driver, neither party mentioned race.
Exactly.
She made a point. Yeah. And I mentioned this on my show. She made a point to mention that, you know, it doesn't matter what race I did them all. They are all insufficient. She brought up race in her apology, which I found interesting. Like, oh, really? Now this is all about inspiring Black men to do better. But if the bus driver that Iyanla was talking about was white or Indian or Oriental? Like, what if he was Native American? Like, then how would your answer have inspired a Black man in that particular regard? It wasn't about that. That was a deflection.
You know, this is what our grandmothers and our mothers sounded like. The ones that were on what Eboni K Williams is on. This is Eartha Kitt. For those of you that want to know, this is Eartha Kitt before that interview that everybody sees. This is Eartha Kitt decades before that interview, right? This is Vivica A. Fox 2 decades ago, right? This is Claudia Jordan 2 decades ago, right? So like, if y'all want to know how Claudia Jordan got to where she is, how Vivica A. Fox got to where she is, how Eartha Kitt and Diane Carroll got to where they are, you're watching it now. For all of us younger Xers, us millennials, us Gen Z, you're watching it now. That's who Eboni K Williams represents, right? It's let me use a woman phrase. It's giving elitism. Right?
Oh,
it's giving elite. It's giving, and by the way, nothing wrong with that, right? I'm not about telling women, Black women in particular, which you should be aspiring to.
Yeah.
You just got to deal with the consequences, though. That's the thing. They're dealing with the consequences and then turning around, looking at blue collar Black men that don't even occupy their class, that they don't even see, right? And then punching down. You know why? Because they feel like the problem with Eboni K Williams is she feels like the walls are closing in on her. In society, in the environment, it is. But let me land. She feels like the walls are closing in on her, and that's forcing her to be put next to the blue collar men that she thinks she's better than. Between her age, between the fact that her and the rich white dude didn't work out, right, and the fact that she's rubbing elbows with the movers and shakers. She's rubbing elbows with them, and they're not choosing up on her. And so she feels like she's being pushed into our direction. And she's like, no. She sounded like Darth Sidious, right? Off of Star Wars. No. And it's like, that's not our fault. It's not our fault that you keep on fumbling the bag. That's not, you know, and for all the everyday, you know, Black women that might be earning some 60, 70, 80 grand a year that identify with her, that's once again an expression of class aspiration, like you were saying. It's aspirational. This is what toxic aspirationalism look like. You're not taking into account the environment. Okay, that's cool. You don't have to. You're not taking into account your race, right? Your position. This is why so many of those women find themselves single as hell. They find themselves single as hell because they're interacting with some of these white guys in their workspaces. They're living, you know, amongst these people, and they're not being shows up on because they think they're better than their Black male counterparts, particularly the blue collar ones. Because they want to express class in a particular way. And that's what Kim Foster was speaking to, right? She wants to express class in a way, and she doesn't think that blue collar men appreciate why you pick the 3 Series Beamer that doesn't have really any options over the fully loaded Camry. She doesn't think you appreciate it, right? Because she's like, yeah, both of them cost 40 grand, but that Beamer denotes a certain class compared to that Camry, right? Living in this expensive ass condo in this part of town, it shows a certain level of class compared to this house that might be nicer, right? But it's in this part of town, right? This really is given white upper middle class or white rich aspirations, and there's nothing wrong with that, dear Black women. There's nothing wrong with that. Just eat the consequences of being stuck between the white dudes that ain't picking you and then the Black dudes you think you're better than. There you go.
It's funny.
You know,
it's funny that you say the white dudes ain't picking her, because she was engaged to a successful white dude.
Yeah. I was speaking for more than just her, especially when you look at the Kim Sarkers of the world. Yeah.
Well,
because she was with the white dude. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, but you know that's also part of their mating tactic. A lot of what they do is deceptive mating tactics. Because if you look at Eboni, for example, okay, so if you want to appeal to a white man, okay, put it like this: women in their 30s, late 30s, early 40s, et cetera, who's never been married, that's a huge gap in your relationship resume that brings up extraordinary red flags for men, especially for an attractive woman. Of course, a man is going to say, WTF is going on here? So what a lot of Black women do, because they're in a position to where they can do it, is they blame Black men. They say, oh, the reason that I am, single is because, I can't find a Black man on my level. And then they go into this dysfunction thing. And that pretty much turns into their excuse for everything. That's why she ran to this when the topic had nothing to do with race. This is her go-to, and this is to explain to white people or potential white suitors. That's what I was going to say. Yeah, to explain to potential white suitors why she's in this situation. But the real reason why she's in this situation, because she breaks engagements because of COVID priorities. She do stupid crap like that.
Well, she's indoctrinated, right? You are belittling Black men for not being indoctrinated like you. And it's not just the education. We got to be very clear. It's that washing Blackness out process mentally. Because you can't claim any type of care of Black men, like we were saying, when you were in a 4-year relationship with this rich white guy who had you living it up, right? So the reason why you then come back to class, like you're saying, Game Changer, is to essentially give white society the excuse. The white men that you aspire to be with, right? You're telling them, hey, look, I'm not going down over there. Y'all ain't sending me to the hood with those Negroes. Please pick me. I know y'all kicked me off of Mount Olympus because I didn't, I broke up with this dude because he wanted to be with his kids during COVID. I know y'all kicked me off of Mount Olympus, but please open the doors back up, right?
Well, I
mean,
yeah,
right?
Well, she does it with white guys because she can. They will believe her rhetoric. I
don't even think they believe her rhetoric.
Right quick. What would happen if she tried that with lead attorney? It wouldn't work. She can't say, oh, well, Black men just aren't on my level. And he just says, well, here I am. It's kind of, so it really wouldn't work if she attempted it that way, because we have the insider trap. We know exactly, and we're used to it. So we do understand that's, so her mating tactic would be more effective with the white guys. And it was effective. You see, with this particular guy, because, a white woman in her mid 30s that has, the same stats, it probably wouldn't have been as effective because he's prepared for their particular brand of deception.
Effery, yeah,
exactly. Especially since he is the father of two presumably white, or two or more presumably white kids. He's been through the effery. He's been to divorce court likely and stuff like that. So he's looking for a safe place, much like a passport bro, but domestically. And he thought that she was it, but she came with a new brand of effery that he wasn't prepared for. It's all mating tactics. It's Chez was right when she said, "Don't take what they say too seriously."
Here's something to think about too, and it's the always punching down on middle, on average. Now, and we've been hearing this for a while, mediocre. as if Black people have money like that and status like that in aggregate.
Right.
And it's fascinating to hear Black, because it's not really about Eboni K Williams or even Kim Foster. It's that mentality that they represent, especially amongst working class everyday Black women that still think like them. That's what's absolutely fascinating. Because you go through the comments of so many of these videos, and it's a bunch of everyday regular $45,000 a year women, if they're even earning that, telling you how they're not going to settle for mediocre. First of all, so for them, understand what they're saying. There is no such thing as middle. It's either you're at the very absolute top, or you're one of the really good looking cookies that we deal with because we find you attractive. There is no middle. And by the way, I don't have a problem with that, ladies. You just got to deal with the consequences. What we fundamentally have, and this is what Iyanla was trying to get Ebony to understand. You now occupy the provider role. You're a 40-year-old millionaire. You occupy the provider role. You should, if you wanted to be married and out the game, you should have got married at least by 30. 32, Mr. Z will be generous. 32, 33, you should have been out the game. But now that you're a 40-year-old millionaire, you occupy the provider role. Now you have an issue because you're still worried about what gets your johnny wet and what you can use as a representation of class. You've aged out of that situation. Now that you're in the provider role, that means that you're going to have to be the one to go find a seriously good looking, 6 foot plus tall, six pack having, chisel chin having, 28 to 32-year-old and have him laid up as a house husband. That's your job now, Ebony. Oops. That's your job now. Right? I get all the brothers in the Black manosphere, like we like to talk about how much, we're doing well in life and as a way to kind of push back on this idea that we're mediocre at best, right? Or average at best. It's funny too how these people think of average and mediocre as an insult. That's a whole nother conversation.
Which is crazy. Yeah.
Which is crazy, right? Because for them it's like, if you're not telling me I'm elite, then you're saying that I'm trash. And it's like, no, you're telling yourself that. But to end it out, that's the way they see the world. What I'm saying is, if you fought to have this egalitarian system, if you fought for women to be equal, then you have to eat everything that comes with equal. Maybe you didn't read the fine print, ladies. What comes with equality in the system is that there are going to be significant amount of women that earn more than their male counterparts. And you're not always going to get to pair up with your perfect class position, right? Or you're not always going to be able to pair up with a man that earns as much or more than you. And you have to, or you can either go lobby the U.S. government for polygamy to be legal, so you could be Diddy's wife number 8, or make Jay-Z and Beyonce open up their doors, and you could be Jay-Z's wife number 7, right? Or you can go beat a bust down for some married white dude, or you engage in same-sex relationships. There, you have choices, ladies. You have choices.
And I tend
There's
to
no
think.
such. Oh no, I was just gonna say to the brother, there's no such thing of a Black man that's elite. Unfortunate but true.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, in their mind,
they'll never look at a Black man and say, "Oh, he's elite." Even if he's rich, handsome, tall, chiseled abs and all that. Oh, he's not. I mean, is Michael B. Jordan elite? Is Robert Smith elite? Is Tiger Woods elite? Like, who is the? There's no elite. There's always just an opportunity to down them. And if you can't really find something that's logical or on paper, they say corny or swag, and apply it to somebody like Tiger Woods. There's no such thing as a Black man elite. They don't want you to go around feeling elite. Then you get uppity.
No, that's real. That's absolutely real, because it's not uncommon to hear Black women complain about how men who have a certain amount of things being prideful or arrogant. I mean, that's why Kevin Samuels got so much pushback, because he was arrogant. Yeah. Like, who are you? And it's funny because when I talked to my friend Laura that I brought on, and she was explaining high value white men and how it's just like they're incredibly arrogant. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's acceptable.
This is what Game Changer is speaking to. White arrogance is acceptable. Yeah. White male arrogance is acceptable, while black male, not even arrogance, confidence is seen as arrogance, and it's how dare you? And like you were saying, Mr. Big Stuff. I remember this song when I was growing up, right? Who do you think you are? Remember the rest of the song. It's not just Mr. Big Stuff. Who do you think you are? Right? Who do you think you are?
Yeah, you never gonna get my love.
Yeah, you're never gonna. And that song is perfect. That was a perfect song, bro. That was a perfect song you chose, bro. Like that song right there says everything you need to know. Who do you think you are? You'll never get my love, right? right? So like, and it's in other words, it's another way of continuing to move the goalposts and to gaslight. What Game Changer said right there was perfect. And I once again, I'm okay with whatever women tactic there is, right? If that's your game, that's your game. But on the other side of that, the consequences of how you play the game, how you think, how you feel, you got to eat that. Stop punching down on blue collar black men because you feel like you're being hemmed up by society or by the environment, or you're not getting the dating results interracially like you want, or maybe you don't look good enough and your education doesn't matter for no man.
I
That's
think
not black men's fault.
Yes, and
Go
that's
ahead.
another thing that I think when Kim Foster brought up the class, which is true, and I think what maybe was missing from the conversation is how class isn't just socioeconomic, right? There's
Yep.
a class, for lack of a better term,
Values, culture, disposition.
right?
Yeah.
If we want to talk about intersectionality, right? Let's just go there for it, where it's just like, okay, you have college education, but then you also have looks, right? And how does a woman's looks rate with college education? And even in the data that I'm going to be reviewing in the next couple of days, the different sociologists was looking at dating patterns and men today and what they're looking into. And at the end of the day, men are still primarily looking at looks. Education is not really that's what they're valuing. And so I think she kind of missed that from the conversation, as if all educated women have access to the same educated men. And that's not even true. If you're not even hitting on the looks class component, then you're not even in their league.
Well, there's also another thing
is
that she's
right quick if I can.
Let me jump in.
Okay, let me just say this right quick. Everybody knows that my crush on YouTube is Kelly Stamps. I don't know or care what her education is. She could have a GED or could be working on her GED right now. She would still be my crush. That's all I'll say. Yeah.
They think that white men are okay with ugly. I've literally had it expressed to me by a black woman that was like, why do black men overemphasize looks? You don't see these Asian men and these white men doing that. I literally had that said to me. So they really think that these non-black men don't care about looks. It's a lower class black man thing, right?
It's not entirely that though. I'll say most blue collar men should be glad that someone like her freed them from having the desire to be with someone.
I agree.
Like she on her face looks great. Even for 40 years old, she's still a good looking woman. At the peak of her powers, let's say between 25 and 30, she was probably fantastic looking, but her ego was probably even higher than that, right? And I'll say this, education does matter, but not just book smarts. I come from a family that has both very high-end white-collar people and very high-end blue-collar people, meaning that one of my grandfather was a tenure professor at a top-tier university, not Ivy League, but very close, right? He's also a diplomat, also in the government from his home country at the very high end, right? My father is a blue-collar worker at the high end, had a very skilled trade, made a lot of money in that way, but I understand on both sides of this how these guys are valuable, how they make their money, how they contribute. And they both look for very similar things, but in different ways. Meaning my mother came and found him and liked him because of his work ethic. He liked her because of how her mind was and knew that she was going to raise good children. She came from a very higher end background. My grandfather found his wife and knew that she would be a good woman and that she would be at the base level a good mother, not because of her education, but because of her mother culture and how her mother raised her. There's a difference between being educated by books and then being educated as to how do you cultivate a family. And I think this woman knows her book smarts very well, but how to raise a family, how to be a wife, how to be a support system, she has no idea of that.
No, I know. I hear you. I mean, obviously, and this goes back to what I was saying earlier about because I love bringing up intersectionality, right? Where just because you have an education doesn't necessarily mean that you would meet the criteria of said men that you want, right? The looks component, the weight component, that's really important, especially if you want to date out. You mentioned qualities, right? Do you actually have the qualities that are essential to being able to maintain a home, to be able to keep a peaceful home? That's not something that you necessarily learn in college. You can learn maybe how to think and understand a particular trade. I think she's an attorney, but that is not translating to being a wife material. And again, these are kind of missing in these conversations. When you do talk to other college educated women, me being one of them, and you're talking about dating and relationships and what that looks like and what that means and hypergamy or dating somebody on your level, like all those things, and they can so often stop at, I have a degree, he should have a degree. And then therefore, because a lot of men don't have degrees or not on our level, and they always miss all of the other areas where they themselves might be missing. You mentioned the intrinsic qualities. She's a beautiful woman, right? So I'm sure she's had plenty of options. She's had plenty of opportunities. And so again, I would hope that she would ask herself, with all the opportunities that I've had, why have I not landed someone? And it just can't be it's all the men's fault. Although that is what we've heard based upon a response that ain't none of these men ish. Even the CFO, the white CFO that was about to marry, he's not even ish because I wasn't his number one. And so it's like, okay, at what point do we also become self-reflective and say, okay, let's just pretend for 2 seconds that men have problems. Okay, well, when it comes to all these different areas, okay, where do you have problems? Because there's no such thing as all men are trash and I'm perfect. Like that's not, you know what I mean?
The environment right now is what, 60-40 split going into college, being enrolled, and by graduation it's 65-35 split between men and women, which means women are entering college at a 60% clip and then graduating college at a 65% clip compared to their male counterparts. I wonder where this mindset gets us, is what I'm saying.
For her, it's going to get her a second wind in her career.
Yeah.
She's at that tail end of her marriage and reproducing market. Like she could have one child. I think she could have one, but she's still dedicated to her career. She's at the lower end of it because the Rio is not a top tier publication.
Nope.
Considering she was at the Times, Post.
I think she was at Fox at one time. Yeah.
She's run the gamut of all of them, and those are higher tier. Doesn't mean that you're going to get like the highest pay unless you're like a senior columnist or feature presenter, but the Griot is not a top tier publication. So she's, I have, for lack of a better word, slumming it. But it is still there, and it does have support. It won't go insolvent.
I'm glad that you said slumming it because I think that's what she sees all of this as, right? That's what I was saying earlier when I was like, she feels like the walls are closing in on her. She feels like she's being forced to slum. Thank you for using that phrase. That's exactly what it is. She feels like she's being forced to slum it with these lower class Negroes over here that she spent her whole entire life trying to get away from. And like now that she got kicked off of Mount Olympus because how she reacted to the white dude spending time with his family during COVID, now she got kicked off of Mount Olympus and she feels like she's being forced to slum it with the Negroes over there.
Yeah.
And I've spent my entire life trying to get away from them, right? Go ahead.
She wants that top tier guy. And if she was in DC, New York, maybe Chicago, she probably met those guys in the white collar end. I know those guys, right? They run hard and they expect a lot because they run so hard. If you're, let's say, all right, the type of guys that I typically run around with, one of my friends, individual contributor at a FANG company, right? Another one is lawyer from a major telecom company, right? These are normal guys, but they have to, 16-hour days are normal. Mm-hmm. And they get that because they are paid well to do that. And because they've made compromises along the way to get to that position, right? So you have to have a lot of things expected of you. Doesn't mean that you're living a bad life, but you have to support this guy who's he's going all out. They're on call all the time. And I'll put it this way: one of my mentors was in the insurance game at the very high end, right? And during the 2008 crisis, he was at one of the top tier firms, and on the VP level. And he said that everybody on that floor had at least 2 heart attacks except for him.
Wow. Right?
So you're the wife of that person. What are you going to do? You worrying about your career basically is sending that person to an early grave. Right. So you're going to get that, high end 6-figure salary, plus all the perks of like the private jets, the, sponsorships to all these different clubs. But you have to be there for him and for the kids in order to facilitate that.
I don't think women like
she's
this.
Not,
I think
they're not going to be there.
I don't think they care. They fundamentally dehumanize men. You're just a walking wallet and a status symbol. She does not care about your early heart attack. She does not care about your early grave. She does not care about how the kids turned out outside of like them also representing her class position. These are the people that raise horrible rich kids with very little personality who think they can buy their way through life.
She would, but the ones I've met who have done that and have like understood what the game is, how do you play your role, they raise pretty good rich kids.
Yeah.
The kids are
no.
They're rich.
I hear what you're saying, but
I mean, I used to babysit 2 of these kids who lived on a golf course, right? The house that they sold probably 10 years ago went for about 1.4 million 10 years ago. So think about how much it might have assessed for in value today, right? These kids are good. Two of them are in defense. One of them is in entertainment. Like these type of people are in these industries, and they do well. But they're looking for someone who is going to be a good spouse, not a partner.
She's not. It's very transactional.
Even though that is a loose term, but they want you to be there. Like this is not all about you. It's not all about
you. You have to explain the difference between wife and partner for some people, because I don't think people that wife is a role, right? A wife is a role that you play, right? So I just need people to understand that, because you're right, we do use wife and partner interchangeably and very loosely, and people need to know wife is the role that you play, right? And so the Eboni K Williams, they will not play a wife. They will not play the wife role. They won't play it. It's very transactional for them. Go ahead.
Yeah, the wife is the primary person who facilitates how the culture of that family will be, from hopefully the culture of her family, and will continue that tradition into the family that she is the person who birthed, like, passed the children from, and then we'll pass that on to the generations. And there's a big difference between that and someone who you marry, you have babies and have nannies raise. If you're a husband in that position at a higher end, right, your network is so deep that you can facilitate it so that if your wife wants to work like at a job, you can provide that for her, right? My grandfather did this for his wife. He was at a higher tier. He said, hey, my wife has done raising her children through the, I want to say like 8th grade was the youngest child. And she said, I want to get out in the world, meet people, work. And he said, I'm in this club. I'm in the Rotary Club here. I'm in the Alliance Francaise Club there. Can you get my wife a job here? I want her to do something. His friends in his business network was said, yes, we'll hire her. Put her there. She only wanted to stay for like 2 years. She was gone after that. And then 2 years later, she wanted to do the same thing. So she can do the things that are necessary and the things that she wants to do. And a wife wants to do the things that are necessary and then can choose to do the things that she wants to do.
This is what it looks like. At the end of the day, I look at this situation as a prime example and a perfect example of what we in the Black Manosphere talk about all the time. The toxic aspirationalism, the delusion, seeing men as nothing but wallets and overglorified guard dogs. Nothing wrong with that. Not paying attention to the environment. Like I said, Iyanla was trying to tell her, and she refused to get it. You are in the providership role. The whole "would you date a bus driver" thing was remember what Iyanla did? She mitigated for where she knew she would go. She said, now I'm not talking about somebody sleeping on their mother's couch playing video games, right? She took that off the table instantly, but she knows that's where women are going to go. Oh, so you're trying to tell me to end up with a bum? No, I'm telling you, what about someone that's stable? They just don't earn as much as you. A stable, productive citizen and contributor to society that just don't have the money as much money as you. Are you willing to deal with that? And what Eboni K Williams said, rhetorically, like categorically, no, I will not. I will not, right? If it's not at the highest level, then I will not. And there's nothing wrong with that. But her and other women that think like her are going to have to deal with the consequences of thinking and feeling that way about men, especially in this environment.
Problem is, she wants to get to that highest level. No one gets to that highest level. Like statistically, no one does. If you look at, the people that are on the Forbes 500, the top tier of global wealth, no one is on that. It's like 5,000 families, right? Really 5,000 people, but really like, 2,000 families. And almost no one, that's no one out of a population.
Could I say it a different way, brother?
Yeah.
In other words, we live on a planet with 8 billion people and less than 3,000 of us are billionaires. On a planet of 8 billion people.
It's a little more than that, but
okay.
Like,
on a planet
not
of,
by much.
Yeah, but on a planet of 8 billion people, we have 56 million millionaires. 8 billion people, right? Go ahead.
I'll tell you, like the richest person I've technically met. No, okay. So I've met two people who are, one is a guaranteed billionaire, right? And I met him like a couple of weeks ago. This person is the ugliest person you've ever met, but is very determined, very regimented, right? The person I met who was probably second to that was 100 millionaire. And I know that because his salary was posted in the region of the world where he works. And he was like put the CEO of that region's telecom industry. And to get to that point, he was always busy, right? Not like 9 to 5, 9 to 9, but around the clock. You were the representative of this huge industry's primary company, business structure in this country or in this region, and you are on call to be the face, and not just the PR face, but like the face that takes responsibility and has authority over everything. There's a different tier that you can be at that is very successful that most people will be very happy at. Most people don't want to work to get there. And in America, it's not that hard to get to a place where most people are very happy. There's a big difference between 9, 10 figures and 6, maybe low 7 figures. I say low 6 figures. Most people are very satisfied with their lives. If you're in a tier 6, Chicago, Los Angeles, Miami, it becomes a little tight. You want to get to the mid 6 figures, right? But if you're in let's say if you're in Sacramento, right? If you're in Raleigh, if you're in what's another state capital? What do you call it? Baton Rouge, right? If you're making low to mid, let's say 150,000 household income, you're very comfortable. Your children are going to be provided for. You have a place to put them forward into the next generation. It's not that hard to get there if she's making 50,000 and can work part-time, and you're the primary breadwinner making 110, 80,000, right? Somewhere between that nexus, you can do a lot with that. You can live in a better zip code, getting them in a public school, getting them training after school, right? If you make 120 to 150, it's a different thing where you can afford to put them in private school. Like, I always see things as $25,000 increments get you more access to more things. And most people live around that, and they try and do things within that level. But this woman, if a brain surgeon who is 45 making $650,000 a year came and talked to her, she would be pretty hesitant to be with him. Meanwhile, he is far beyond what she would want. So at this point, if she knows she can't get that, what is her option? Become salacious, raise her Q score, get people talking about her, hopefully parlay that into another position. If she gets lucky and gets that brain surgeon, that's a double win. But she'll get more notoriety for this. She's one of these people who I would have forgot about. I probably forgot about from like 5 or 10 years ago, after that wave of like conservative journalists like Crystal Waters and whatnot died away.
Yep.
Now she's trying to get her foot back and, try and get her name out there a lot more.
She's also trying to siren call for the men that she thinks she's on the level of. This is also like you were saying, like, look, yeah. I'm not dealing with these other guys. Y'all come get me. So one of y'all come get me. I'm not dealing with them. I'm letting everybody know that I categorically reject these type of dudes. Y'all, because one of y'all dudes come get me. I'll be waiting right here on the corner. Right. Yeah. So that's another thing she's attempting to do. Hopefully it worked for her.
Seduction technique.
You broke up, brother. Could you say that again?
One of the people in the chat saying that I wasn't aware that she was a former beauty queen. So I could see you're a former beauty queen. You were at grad school. She's been around the elite of the elite, arguably her entire adult life, right? And so I could understand how somebody who's acclimated to a certain level of men would still want that. But it's like, that's where at a certain point you have to be self-reflective and be like, if I've been around these men for decades, why haven't I landed one? And it can't just be it's all the men's fault, when I can look around and likely see that there's other friends or people that I know who are married. Like, it can't just be they're all wrong and I've done nothing. You know what I mean? So good point. Guys, I'm going to have to wrap this up pretty soon. So if you guys have any final thoughts, let me know.
I'll jump off. I'll make this my final thought. I'm glad that you also brought up Kim Foster and the way she spoke about class. And we have to be very clear, just in case anybody of note is listening. The problem is not your sons. It's your daughters not accepting what your class of people designed. Y'all wanted a more feminized society where women had leadership positions. You got it. The women are not adopting to the role y'all created. Y'all created a world where a third of men would be leaders of their home financially, or a third of women, and then somewhere a third of men and women would be somewhere in the middle, and their incomes would be, complementary. The women and the 2/3 of complementary income and primary breadwinner are given a middle figure to all of this because they don't want what you designed. Right? They don't want it. And Kim Foster is a prime example of that. And Eboni K Williams is a prime example of that. They will not be put in the provider role. What you're seeing is millionaire women, connected women, and the Black community, and definitely outside of it, are saying, no, I want a man that earns even more. I don't care if I'm a millionaire. I want a person that earns even more than that. I don't care if I'm a billionaire. Give me God, right? So like, and there's nothing wrong with that except when you add on the societal level. On a one-to-one level, on an everyday basis, there's nothing wrong with Ebony K. Williams and what's her face, Kim Foster having
there is.
having these standards. No, but I'm there's something I'm saying right now, right? The problem is when you start doing in aggregate, when you have everyday working class $50,000 a year women that think the same way, right? 40,000, 35. These are women that don't like that. They don't have it like that, but yet they still think the same way, and they're using mediocre, right? The term mediocre as a excuse me, my apologies, as an insult to the men on their same economic level and maybe even class level. You have an issue. Now you can see why the marriage rate is going through the floor. It's not the men, and quite frankly, it's never been the men. It's the women, and this society is going to have to deal with that. Have fun trying to socialize them otherwise, but I think that biological imperative will always say no. And I'll pause right there. Y'all go ahead.
I want to say she was honest in a way that is very good that people need to recognize, right?
I've
dated a lot of women who are like this, and they're at the higher end of the upper middle class, right? Lower end of the upper class, right? She's telling you, if you were a bus driver and you happen to be a very good looking person and you wind up getting with her, she would make your life a living hell. And I've dated women who are
absolutely
like this, and they will henpeck you to the nth degree because you are not the guy that they want. In other ways, you will be that in certain ways, but not in all of the ways. And you have to take this as like there's a good movie, A Bronx Tale, right? Where this guy, the main character is following around this guy who owes him $20, right? And the main criminal says, "Look, you got away for free. He owes you $20. You never have to talk to him again." Every guy should look at that, blue collar, white collar, whatever, as this woman let you off cheap. You don't have to deal with her. You don't have to engage with her. Nothing. You just mark her off the territory. Figure out where your circle is and target on that. And that's what most men should be doing. Like, I know some white collar women who really like blue collar men. I know some blue collar women who really like blue collar men or white collar men. Right? Like it just depends on like where you're oriented towards. Because I've met people who have higher end degrees who work in a more blue collar area, who have no degree. I know blue collar guys who wind up getting a degree in engineering just because they've been on the job so long and the company sponsors them and they wind up getting a master's. Like, it happens in weird ways. And it's not one way to signal out where you are in this culture, but people use it as a way to disqualify you.
That's true. That's very true.
Be glad you're disqualified from this woman. Be glad. I once had a woman who was a tenured professor, right? Girlfriend. She asked me as pillow talk, "What is your brand?" And I didn't know how to answer that. And I still don't. This is like 10 years ago. I really don't understand what that even means. But that's the type of thinking that goes into being with a woman like that. Like, she's thinking about the outside appearances at all time.
Oh, absolutely. That's what I alluded to earlier with Kim Foster. That's what we were seeing. That the issue, the resentment is not really the blue collar men who specifically probably didn't go to college because they didn't want to have to deal with all the extra and didn't really care about that social hierarchy. It's the women who that's important to. Yeah. They're the ones who are resentful. So
it's another way of also saying, why didn't you get indoctrinated like me? Why didn't you learn how to be a better consumer like me? Why didn't you, take in this, white Eurocentric kind of indoctrination system that we claim that we're fighting against like I have? Right. How dare you try to do something different and, somehow find your little niche of freedom mentally and psychologically? How dare you? You need to come in the game with me in the mud, right? Yeah. I'll pause right there.
And some guys can walk. Some guys can walk through, like, so let's say you perceive like degrees to be like the ultimate, validation tool, right? I've walked a handful of guys through like, oh, this is what you do to get to X, Y, and Z. Like military folks, most I think know, but not everyone does, that any county or general area that has a lot of military bases usually has like one or two universities that can give you like a military shortcut to a degree. They'll take in your experience and stuff. I had a friend who was dating this woman who was working like office job, paralegal, and he was dating her, liked her. She didn't like him because he didn't have a degree. He had like 5 years of experience in the military and was going to keep going. I told him, hey, go look at this program. It's up at I was in DC. It was near the Pentagon. I can't remember which university, but there's like 10 universities around there. And they talked to him and they said, yeah, we looked at your history. You could get a bachelor's in a year and a half. And we said, really? Went, got it. Then got an MBA. Within 3 years, he had already gotten 2 degrees. She had her paralegal degree. A couple months later, they tried to reconnect, and she was more clamoring for him than he was for her. He was the same guy, but just with more papers behind his name. At that point, she had fucked herself because she didn't latch on to him and say, hey, I know this, and that. And all I would have asked was a couple minutes to just get that information to that type of person. He saved himself.
Right. Well, guys, this has been a great conversation. I do actually have to hop off. I have some family.
Thanks for having me up, Chez.
It's been fun.
Thanks for having me up.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. Well, guys, this has been fun. Like, share, subscribe on the way out if you haven't already. Support your favorite content creators. I do have some other upcoming lives coming up. I guess I could come up for a second as I do my outro. I do have a few upcoming lives coming up. So if you haven't hit the notification bell already, please be sure to do so you are notified each time I go live. If you like this, found this interesting, share it, get the word out there. Like I said, that's the best way to be the shadow ban. Also, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Yes, I know I've been sharing different experts and things on the community tab just regarding some of the more recent dating patterns. So I'm planning on just doing a live and trying to break it down all at once. I have a lot to unpack. I still am planning on interviewing 2 of the sociologists. We had to push it off because I think someone got sick and then school stuff and life. But I am planning on still interviewing those 2 sociologists about some of the dating patterns and trends that we saw. Again, that very much just completely obliterate a lot of the common talking points we see going on in the dating and mating space, in the relationship space, in the Black dating space. I mean, it just completely obliterates and annihilates so many of these different ideas that have been going out about Black men's preference for white women and Black women being able to date and marry out, and Asian men this and that. I mean, literally the book breaks it down from race, gender, looks at even different sexual orientations. There's a lot of information to unpack and a lot I want to cover off. So it's been taking me a little while, but I've just been taking my time reading through different things, trying to piece together what this is going to mean. So I am looking forward to doing that breakdown. Again, be sure to hit the notification bell so you are aware when that live drops. And then you are also aware when my videos drop. I know you guys don't always see that stuff. So do that. And I'm trying to think if I got everything else. I actually did want to acknowledge a Cash App. I see Julian came through with a 10 on the Cash App. So thank you so much, Julian, for that. I also saw a Cash App come through, I think a few days ago from let's see, where'd you go? From Adrian with the 20. So thank you so much with the 20, Adrian. I think that was in reference to the interview I had with ABL. I really enjoyed that interview. I know not all of you guys obviously are conservatives, and that's fine. I more wanted to have a conversation and to learn just a little bit more about his perspective and just about that ideology in general. As I mentioned, I certainly do not pretend to be a political expert in truly anything. So if I said something or misunderstood something or something went over my head, know that it was likely due to ignorance, not fully understanding the backstory. Anyways, I think that's what I got for today. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. Thank you for being here. Like, share, subscribe on the way out, and we'll talk later. Okay, bye.